I am deeply humbled by this recognition, elders. Thank you.
The drummer by the stalls keeps looking over here. I think he likes your dress.
Really? He is quite handsome.
You are being too charming tonight, sister.
They seem to enjoy it, don't they?
They were born under the same roof, raised by the same hands and fed from the same table. Yet from the very beginning life chose to treat them differently. The elder sister arrived first, loud and demanding, with eyes that searched the room as if the world already owed her something. The younger sister came years later, quiet and gentle, with a calm presence that seemed to soften the air around her. People often said they looked alike, but anyone who watched them closely could see the difference. It was not in their faces but in their hearts. Their family was simple. They lived a modest life, guided by hard work and tradition. Love was present, but it was uneven, shaped by expectations and disappointment. The elder sister grew up carrying the weight of being first, the one who was supposed to succeed, to shine, to lead. Every small failure felt like proof that she was not enough. The younger sister never tried to stand out. She helped without being asked, listened more than she spoke, and gave kindness freely. Neighbors trusted her. Elders praised her manners. Children followed her naturally. She did not demand attention, yet attention followed her anyway. People noticed. They noticed how she greeted everyone with respect. They noticed how she carried herself with humility. Slowly, quietly, admiration wrapped itself around her like a soft glow. No celebration announced it. No trumpet sounded. But it was there and it grew. The elder sister noticed too. At first it was only a feeling, small and sharp like a stone in her shoe. She told herself it was nothing. Just tired thoughts. Just bad days. But each compliment the younger sister received felt like something being taken away from her. Each smile from the community felt like a reminder of what she believed should have been hers. At home the difference became heavier. When the younger sister made a mistake, it was forgiven easily. When the elder sister failed, silence filled the room. That silence hurt more than anger. It whispered cruel questions late at night. Why her? Why not me? The elder sister began to compare everything. Their laughter, their friendships, their futures. And comparison slowly turned into bitterness. Still she smiled. To outsiders they looked close. They walked together. They worked side by side. The elder sister spoke kindly, praised her sibling in public, and played her role well. No one suspected the storm growing behind her eyes. But jealousy does not shout when it arrives. It waits. It watches. It feeds on small wounds and unmet hopes. It grows in silence. The younger sister felt safe. She believed blood meant protection. She trusted without fear, never imagining that the danger she would one day face was not outside the home, but sleeping under the same roof. And so, without anyone noticing, something dark began to take root. A quiet poison, slow and patient, settled in the elder sister's heart. Life had chosen its favorite light, and envy had begun to ask for payment. The change did not happen all at once. It arrived the way important moments often do, quietly, almost unnoticed at first. The younger sister was given an opportunity that few in their community ever received. It was not something she had demanded or chased with pride. It came to her because others saw what she never spoke of, her honesty, her patience, and the steady way she carried responsibility. Elders began to trust her with important tasks. Families spoke her name with respect. Even those who had once ignored her now sought her presence. With this new trust came a new light. People started saying her future looked bright. They spoke of her potential, her good heart, and the blessings that seemed to follow her steps. It was not loud praise, but it was constant. And constant praise has a way of reshaping how others see you, including family. The elder sister watched it all from the side. At first, she clapped with everyone else. She smiled, nodded, and spoke words of support. She told others how proud she was, how happy she felt. Her voice was calm, her face well-trained. No one could see the tension tightening inside her chest. Inside, something burned. She replayed every memory of her own efforts, the time she tried and failed, the moment she hoped for recognition that never came. Now, the same people who barely noticed her struggles spoke endlessly of her younger sister's promise. It felt unfair. In her heart, the elder sister asked questions she never dared speak. Why is fate so blind? Why does it reward softness instead of strength? Why her? Each question added fuel to a growing fire. Still, she stayed close. She became helpful, offering advice, walking beside her sister as if guarding her from harm. Others praised her loyalty. They said she was a good sister, protective and wise. Those words tasted sweet, but only for a moment. Soon, sweetness turned sour. The elder sister began to plant small seeds. Nothing obvious. Nothing that could be traced back to her. A quiet comment here. A doubtful look there. She shared half-truths that sounded harmless but carried weight. When people asked questions, she answered with hesitation, not lies. Just enough uncertainty to bend the truth. Success changes people, she would hint softly. She means well, but pressure can do strange things. No accusation. No clear blame. Just enough doubt. The younger sister noticed changes but misunderstood them. Some smiles felt colder. Some greetings shorter. She blamed herself, wondering if she had unknowingly offended others. She worked harder, smiled more, and remained kind, unaware that kindness alone could not protect her anymore. Each whisper made the elder sister feel more powerful. The jealousy that once lived quietly had found purpose. It no longer felt like pain, it felt like control. Destiny, she believed, had made a mistake and she was simply correcting it. But envy is never satisfied with small victories. As the younger sister continued to rise, the elder sister's patience thinned. What began as resentment had now turned into intention. The line between love and rivalry faded, replaced by a dangerous belief that only one sister could shine. And she was determined it would not be the younger one. That night, as they slept under the same roof, one sister dreamed of a hopeful future. The other dreamed of taking it away. The elder sister had learned the art of disguise. She could laugh with her family, speak words of care, and cradle the younger sister's trust, all while quietly undermining her from the shadows. To everyone else, she was loyal, wise, and protective. To her younger sister, she was the rock she leaned on, the voice of reason in confusing times. But beneath that warm smile, a careful plan was forming. It started subtly. When the younger sister shared her dreams, the elder sister offered advice that sounded helpful but carried hidden twists. A caution here, a slight exaggeration there, enough to sow uncertainty in the younger sister's mind. She always framed it as concern, as love, as a warning from experience. You must be careful, she would say, voice soft. Not everyone has the heart you have. Some will envy you and some will try to take advantage. Don't trust too easily. The younger sister nodded, grateful for guidance, unaware that each word slowly tightened invisible chains around her opportunities. She thought her sister was protecting her, never suspecting the careful precision of betrayal beneath those words. Outside the home, the elder sister whispered doubt into the ears of neighbors, friends, and even relatives. She praised the younger sister openly but added subtle hints that made people pause. She's talented, yes, but sometimes people overestimate her. It was never a lie, just an emphasis on the slightest flaw. And people listened because they trusted the elder sister's wisdom. Every interaction became a battlefield fought silently. The younger sister remained blind to the trap forming around her. She carried on with her kindness, her humility, and her quiet courage, believing that goodness alone would protect her from harm. But the elder sister's envy had grown bold enough to stretch beyond the walls of their home. The tension between them was invisible, like the weight of a storm cloud before rain. Neighbors began to notice small changes in the family, though no one could place the cause. The younger sister sometimes felt a chill in her sister's eyes, but she brushed it off as fatigue, stress, or the natural tensions of life. She could not fathom that her closest ally, the one she trusted most, might be preparing her downfall. Even at home, the elder sister positioned herself as protector. She offered to speak for her sister in public matters, to help manage her relationships, and to smooth over any perceived missteps. And the younger sister, grateful for the support, accepted it with open arms. Each act of help strengthened the elder sister's cover, hiding her jealousy beneath layers of feigned loyalty. But behind the carefully curated smiles and helpful gestures, the elder sister's heart hardened. Every success her younger sister achieved, every compliment she received, was now a target of calculated interference. It was no longer enough to resent quietly. She had to shape outcomes, redirect admiration, and ensure that, in her mind, the younger sister would never fully claim the future she seemed destined for. Yet she remained convincing even to herself. She whispered self-justifications. I only want what's fair. I only want what should have been mine. In her mind, love and betrayal had merged, forming a dangerous conviction that the younger sister's light was both deserved and yet, somehow, wrongfully received. And so, under one roof, life continued. The younger sister lived in blissful trust, her world small but full of hope, unaware that the very person she relied on was quietly shaping the path that would one day lead to her first great fall. The stage was set. The first cracks had appeared, invisible to all but the keenest eye. And behind the elder sister's warm smile, a secret waited, patient, silent, and deadly in its intent. The day came without warning, though the signs had long been building. What struck first was not the action itself, but the shock of realization. The younger sister, who had always been careful and kind, suddenly found herself facing the consequences of forces she could neither see nor understand. It began with a misunderstanding that grew like wildfire. A trusted friend questioned her intentions in front of neighbors. An important opportunity slipped through her fingers, leaving others to doubt her competence. The whispers started slowly at first, soft murmurs at market stalls, quiet questions from neighbors, but soon they swelled into a tide of suspicion. The younger sister felt confusion first. How could this be happening? She had done nothing wrong. She had worked honestly, treated everyone with respect, and trusted those closest to her. Yet, everywhere she turned, eyes that once shone with admiration now flickered with uncertainty. Friends she had relied upon paused before speaking to her. Elders offered cautious words instead of open praise. And behind all of it, the elder sister watched, silent and composed. She had orchestrated each step with care, ensuring that the younger sister's first stumble looked like misfortune, not malice. A misplaced comment here, a subtle suggestion there, enough to divert trust and encourage doubt. She never touched her sister openly, never confronted her directly, yet the damage was done. The younger sister's heart sank. Confusion turned to hurt and hurt to self-blame. She retraced every word she had spoken, every action she had taken, searching desperately for the misstep she could not find. Was it pride that led to this? Naivety? Or had she failed to see the silent enemies around her? Family noticed the shift. They whispered too, though cautiously, afraid to accuse but unable to ignore what had begun to unfold. The elder sister maintained her composed facade, offering gentle guidance while quietly feeding doubts. Perhaps she should have been more careful, she would say softly, with a look of concern that hid her satisfaction. The younger sister felt the weight of isolation pressing in. Friends avoided her gaze, relatives spoke in tones that implied disappointment, and her own family seemed unsure of how to respond. Her reputation, once a quiet source of pride, was now fragile, threatened by invisible hands she could not see. Yet even in this first fall, she clung to hope. She told herself it was a mistake, a minor misunderstanding that would soon be corrected. She smiled where she could, continued to serve her community with humility, and reminded herself that truth had a way of shining through. But the elder sister knew better. She had seen the first cracks in her siblings' confidence. That single stumble was proof that her plan was working. Envy no longer lived quietly, it had found its mark. Each faltering step the younger sister took strengthened the elder sister's belief that her destiny could be corrected, that the light that was never meant for her sister could still be dimmed. As the sun set on that day, the younger sister sat alone by the riverbank, her heart heavy with questions she could not answer. The world that had once seemed steady and kind now felt uncertain. And though she did not know it yet, this first fall was only the beginning. The stage had shifted. Trust had been shaken. And the quiet hand of jealousy had made its first, unmistakable strike. The next blow came like a storm without warning, sudden, violent, and unrelenting. The first fall had shaken her, but now the younger sister faced a calamity that would touch every part of her life. Her world, once steady under the warmth of family and community, began to crumble like sand slipping through her fingers. It started with public humiliation. A trusted engagement, one she had nurtured with care and hope, fell apart in the harshest way. Rumors, carefully planted by the elder sister, had reached the ears of her fiancé. Questions were asked, doubts cast, and in one devastating moment, the man she trusted questioned her heart, her honesty, even her worth. The younger sister was left speechless, unable to explain what she had not done, unable to defend herself against whispers she could not control. Then came financial ruin. A small investment, made with careful thought and a desire to build something for the future, collapsed under mysterious circumstances. Money disappeared, agreements fell through, and friends who had once supported her turned cautious and distant. She began to see the emptiness behind smiles she had taken for granted. Family members, too, were swayed by the subtle poison the elder sister had sown. They questioned her judgment, wondered if she had made mistakes they could not see. The home, once a place of safety and belonging, now felt heavy with suspicion. Each glance from relatives carried weight, each casual remark seemed loaded with judgment. The younger sister felt the weight of isolation pressing down on her chest. Confusion mixed with heartbreak and heartbreak twisted into despair. She replayed every action, every word, searching for where she had failed, blaming herself for the misfortunes that seemed to rain down upon her. Through it all, the elder sister watched with a careful calm. Outwardly, she comforted the younger sister, offered advice, and acted as if she were the protector, the only person who understood. But each act of kindness was a calculated step, a way to tighten the trap while maintaining the appearance of love. The younger sister leaned on her, never realizing that the very support she welcomed was part of the scheme that destroyed her world. Neighbors and friends whispered openly now, not just behind her back but with cautious tones even in her presence. Praise and admiration had turned to doubt and speculation. The younger sister, once quietly admired, was now viewed with suspicion and pity. The weight of every accusation, every misstep, real or imagined, pressed down relentlessly. In this darkness she felt nearly everything slip from her hands: status, trust, hope. Even the simplest joys felt tainted. The life she had known, the life she had built with care and integrity, seemed to vanish before her eyes. Yet still she did not cry out in anger. She did not lash at the world. Instead, she clung to a fragile thread of faith, the faint belief that truth might still surface, that goodness might somehow survive even in the shadow of betrayal. Meanwhile, the elder sister, poised and unbroken, walked through the chaos she had orchestrated. To the community she appeared validated, strong and righteous. To herself she felt the intoxicating thrill of control, convinced that she had finally corrected the injustice of life's favor. But even in this seeming triumph, something stirred quietly, a subtle hint that the tides were not fully in her hands. Fate has a way of remembering. And while the younger sister stood in ruin, fate had not yet finished its reckoning. That night, as the younger sister sat in silence, mourning all that had been lost, the elder sister smiled in her sleep, proud and satisfied. But somewhere deep inside, even her pride trembled slightly, like a shadow in the corner of a well-lit room. Because storms are temporary, but consequences always find their way. The younger sister awoke the next morning to a world that felt smaller, colder, and unrecognizable. She was surrounded by the echoes of her losses, the broken engagement, the whispered doubts of friends, the skeptical glances of family. Even the home she had once considered a sanctuary now seemed heavy, filled with unspoken accusations and subtle mistrust. She tried to reach for hope, but it felt slippery in her hands. Every step forward seemed to land on uncertain ground. Her confidence had been shaken, her trust fractured, and the kindness she had offered freely now seemed like a vulnerability others could exploit. Alone, she confronted emotions she had never faced before. Anger simmered beneath the surface, at circumstances, at people, and, most quietly, at her own inability to see the danger coming. Despair pressed down like a weight, tempting her to give in, to surrender to the world that had turned its back. Yet even in the shadow of abandonment, something deeper remained: resilience. She discovered it not in triumph or recognition, but in quiet moments of reflection. She remembered the principles she had lived by: honesty, patience, and compassion, and realized that these had not failed her. They had only been tested. She began to understand that survival did not mean avoiding pain, but learning to endure it. She spent hours alone, walking by the river, tending to the small garden she had loved, and listening to the rhythms of life around her. Nature reminded her that storms pass and that even when everything seems lost, roots grow silently beneath the surface, preparing for the next season. In these quiet moments, she also confronted the betrayal she had suffered. Her heart ached at the realization that the person she had trusted most, the sister she had loved and confided in, had been the architect of her suffering. Yet even this pain carried a lesson. People are complex and intentions are not always as they seem. Understanding this truth gave her a sense of clarity, even if it could not ease the hurt entirely. She began to rebuild, carefully, slowly, without fanfare or expectation. She no longer sought the approval of others, nor did she rely on it for her sense of worth. Instead, she focused on the small victories, the garden that grew, the chores she completed, the kindness she could still offer to those around her. Each act, though seemingly insignificant, was a step toward reclaiming her dignity and agency. At night, she would sit quietly, imagining a future she could still shape, one day at a time. It was not a world restored to its former brightness, but a new one, tempered by experience and strengthened by endurance. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that her story was not over. Fate had not forgotten her, it had merely paused, waiting for the right moment. The elder sister, meanwhile, remained unaware that her younger sibling was quietly gathering strength. She believed the game was won, that control and envy had cemented her victory. But resilience is often invisible to those blinded by pride, and the seeds of redemption were already taking root in the heart that had been most tested. The younger sister was abandoned, yes, but she was not broken. And in that quiet defiance, hope began to stir once more, ready to face whatever came next. The elder sister moved through her days with a quiet satisfaction that masked the cracks beginning to form beneath the surface. To the world, she had achieved what she had long believed was owed to her: recognition, respect, and a sense of control over her family and community. She carried herself with pride, every word and gesture carefully measured to maintain the appearance of success. But inside, the victory felt hollow. Every compliment she received, every nod of approval, seemed to echo back a question she could not silence. Is this truly enough? The relationships she had worked so hard to preserve began to strain under the weight of her ambition. Friends she once trusted grew distant, sensing tension they could not name. Even family members, who had once accepted her loyalty unquestioningly, began to notice a subtle coldness in her eyes, a shadow that hinted at the envy and deception that had brought her here. Her conscience, long buried beneath layers of justification, began to stir. Late at night, when the house was quiet and the world asleep, she felt the first pangs of unease. Memories of the younger sister's kindness, her unwavering trust, and her quiet strength surfaced unexpectedly. The elder sister would try to push them away, insisting to herself that it was only envy speaking, that every act she had done was justified. But still, the memories lingered, whispering that perhaps the cost of her victory was far greater than she had imagined. The elder sister's achievements began to show cracks in other ways as well. Opportunities she had counted on faltered unexpectedly. Friends questioned her decisions behind polite smiles. Small mistakes that would have once gone unnoticed now drew attention. Each incident fed her growing anxiety, though she masked it with pride and careful composure. Yet she refused to consider the possibility that karma might be at work. She told herself that life simply favored her for her cunning, for her ability to act where others could not. Every reflection, every shadow of doubt, was conveniently blamed on others. Her sister's perceived naivety, the unfairness of circumstances, the unpredictability of the world. She did not see that the balance of fate was quietly shifting, that her actions had sown seeds she could no longer fully control. Meanwhile, the younger sister, who had been quietly rebuilding, began to gather small victories. Each day she grew stronger in patience, wisdom, and determination. While the elder sister measured triumph in the visible applause of others, the younger sister measured hers in quiet endurance and inner peace. The illusion of victory, so intoxicating at first, began to waver for the elder sister. The life she had believed was fully hers now carried subtle reminders that control is never absolute. The smiles she received felt forced, the accolades fleeting, the praise shallow. And though she tried to ignore it, a seed of fear began to grow alongside her pride. The fear that her sister's fall might not be permanent, that the world could see the truth before she was ready. In the quiet moments, when the world was asleep and only shadows moved across the walls, the elder sister felt a tension she could not name. She had won, yet everything around her whispered that victories earned through envy are never complete. They are fragile, temporary, and hollow. And somewhere beyond the walls of her carefully maintained world, the younger sister's quiet strength grew, preparing to rise. Fate, patient and precise, had begun to tip the scales. The illusion of victory was just that, an image beautiful from a distance but empty at its core. The quiet, patient hand of fate had begun its work. What had once seemed like total ruin for the younger sister now held the first signs of hope, subtle yet undeniable. Life had not abandoned her, It had only tested her, and in doing so, shaped a strength she had never fully realized. She found support in unexpected places. A neighbor she had once helped without thought now returned her kindness, offering advice and small acts of assistance that slowly restored her confidence. Friends who had doubted her began to see her integrity through the haze of gossip, noticing the truth beneath the rumors. Each small gesture, each word of encouragement, felt like a lifeline, a reminder that the world was not entirely against her. The younger sister herself had changed. No longer naive, no longer easily shaken, she carried the quiet wisdom earned through suffering. She worked with careful thought, measured her actions, and rebuilt her reputation one small step at a time. She still smiled and remained kind, but there was a new depth in her gaze, a resilience that could not be shaken by whispers or doubt. Meanwhile, the elder sister's control began to falter. The careful image she had constructed started to crack under pressure she could not anticipate. Opportunities she believed were secure slipped through her fingers, and subtle mistakes, once invisible, now attracted attention. The lies and manipulations she had so carefully orchestrated began to surface in small ways. Questions from neighbors, skeptical glances from relatives, inconsistencies whispered by those who had noticed the truth. She felt the first stirrings of panic, though she refused to call it that. Pride kept her upright, and appearances were still carefully maintained. Yet deep inside, fear began to seep in. The younger sister, once humbled and vulnerable, was slowly finding her footing. And with each step the younger sister took toward recovery, the elder sister's sense of control weakened. It was in these moments that the elder sister's envy, once sharp and decisive, became uneasy. She had believed she could shape destiny with her cunning, but she was learning that the world has a way of balancing itself in ways no human hand can fully command. Every act of sabotage she had performed, every subtle lie whispered in shadows, now risked being exposed. The younger sister, unaware of the full scope of the elder's plotting, moved forward with careful courage. Each small victory, a friendship regained, a misunderstanding cleared, a project completed, was another thread woven into her rising strength. She did not seek revenge, she sought only justice in its truest form, the restoration of her life, her dignity, and her peace. And so, the scales began to tilt. The elder sister's illusion of invincibility faltered as the younger sister's quiet determination grew. Suspense hung in the air like electricity before a storm. The family and the community, once deceived by appearances, began to sense that change was coming. Fate, patient and deliberate, had begun its work. The first cracks had appeared in the elder sister's carefully constructed world. And while she still believed herself victorious, the younger sister's perseverance, humility, and inner strength had set forces in motion that even envy could not stop. Soon, the truth would no longer be silent. The moment of reckoning was approaching, and the balance of power was slowly, inevitably shifting. The day the truth began to surface was not marked by fanfare or grand announcements. It arrived quietly, like dawn breaking through a long, stormy night, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. The younger sister, who had endured heartbreak, betrayal, and isolation, now stood on the threshold of vindication. Little by little, the hidden web of lies the elder sister had spun began to unravel. Friends who had been manipulated into doubt now came forward with the full story, recounting what they had heard and how their opinions had been swayed by half-truths. Witnesses to small acts of sabotage, once silent out of fear or loyalty, finally spoke openly. For the community, the revelations were shocking. People who had once whispered doubts about the younger sister now realized the depth of deception that had been operating right under their eyes. The admiration that had quietly followed the younger sister's footsteps returned, this time stronger and tinged with respect for her endurance. The younger sister herself felt a mix of emotions. Relief, yes, but also lingering pain. The betrayal she had suffered left scars that could not be erased by the truth alone. Every lie, every stolen opportunity, every quiet manipulation came rushing back, a bitter reminder of how easily trust can be exploited. She felt sorrow for the lost time, for friendships strained or broken, and for the innocence she had once held so freely. The elder sister, confronted by undeniable evidence of her actions, could no longer hide behind a smile or careful words. The community, the family, even those she had once counted on, now looked at her with skepticism and disappointment. Pride, which had carried her through her schemes, offered no protection now. She felt the sharp edge of shame pierce through her carefully constructed life. Attempts to justify herself faltered. Every excuse, every claim of concern or guidance, rang hollow in the face of truth. The very people who had once trusted her discernment now saw clearly the envy, manipulation, and quiet cruelty she had cloaked in love. The consequences of her choices, once distant, now pressed upon her like a weight she could not lift. The younger sister, though vindicated, did not seek revenge. Her eyes reflected the depth of her trials, but they also carried clarity, strength, and the quiet wisdom that only suffering can teach. She understood now that justice is not always measured by punishment, but by the exposure of truth and the restoration of what was taken. In the home where they had grown up, the balance of power had shifted completely. The elder sister, once convinced of her absolute control, was now isolated. Every relationship she had manipulated showed cracks. Every ally she had relied upon turned away, either in disappointment or newfound understanding. Her victories were revealed as illusions. And the younger sister, though emotionally scarred, began to rebuild with a steadier hand. Her dignity, once threatened by lies, now stood restored. Her community saw her in a new light, not merely as a victim who had endured, but as a person whose strength and integrity had never faltered, even when the world seemed to betray her. The truth, patient and unwavering, had emerged. The weight of consequences pressed upon the elder sister, while the younger sister embraced the quiet power of survival and vindication. And as the days unfolded, it became clear that envy may have stolen moments, but it could never steal the essence of one's character. The younger sister had been wronged, yes, but now truth had delivered her quiet, undeniable justice. And the elder sister, left to face the ruin of her carefully built illusions, understood finally the cost of a heart consumed by jealousy. With the truth laid bare, the world began to settle, but it did so quietly, without the dramatic fanfare the elder sister might have feared, or the younger sister might have hoped for. There were no grand public accusations, no harsh courtroom-like confrontations. Instead, the consequences of years of envy and manipulation unfolded with the steady inevitability of nature itself. The elder sister felt the weight of every choice she had made. Relationships that had once bolstered her pride now crumbled. Friends who had silently observed the unraveling of her schemes kept their distance. Family members spoke carefully, no longer eager to include her in their decisions, their trust forever fractured. Pride, which had carried her through deceit, could not protect her now. The hollow victories she had relished offered no comfort against the quiet, pervasive shame settling in her chest. Even her community, once blind to her jealousy, looked at her differently. They saw the stark contrast between the sister who had been broken and tested and the one who had acted with envy. Admiration, once her tool, turned to subtle disapproval. And though no one openly shunned her, every glance, every question, and every cautious interaction reminded her that her actions carried weight she could no longer escape. The younger sister, by contrast, regained her dignity with a tempered grace. She was not triumphant in the way the world often expects. No laughter of revenge, no gestures of superiority, but she carried herself with a quiet strength that spoke louder than words. She felt the pain of betrayal, yes, and the scars remained, etched deep into her heart. Yet she also felt relief, clarity, and the steady reassurance that her character had endured even when everything else faltered. There were moments, in the stillness of the evening, when the younger sister wrestled with anger. She remembered every subtle sabotage, every whispered doubt, every lost opportunity. She felt the urge to retaliate, to confront, to punish. But as she looked upon the consequences already unfolding in her sister's life, she realized that justice did not always require action. The natural consequences of envy and deceit were already doing their work. This understanding brought her peace. Judgment had arrived, not through spectacle, not through vengeance, but through the quiet, relentless balance of life. The younger sister could reclaim her path without stooping to bitterness. She could rebuild, not by tearing others down, but by nurturing herself and the truth she had preserved through years of hardship. The elder sister, left with the consequences of her choices, faced a life that had become fragile and constrained by her own making. Pride, once her ally, had turned to a mirror reflecting every misstep, every act of envy, and every lost opportunity to choose love over malice. She had not been destroyed by an external force. She had been undone by the darkness she allowed to grow within herself. And in the quiet moments between sunrise and dusk, the family, the community, and the sisters themselves came to understand a powerful truth. Justice does not always roar. Sometimes, it arrives in subtle shifts: lost trust, fractured relationships, a sister's quiet rise. It is measured not in applause but in the clarity left behind when illusions fall. The younger sister walked forward, not with celebration but with strength. She had survived the storm, endured betrayal, and witnessed the truth rise above deceit. And though the elder sister remained within the same walls, her life forever altered. The story had reached a moral clarity that neither victory nor revenge could match. The moment came quietly, without ceremony, in the stillness of the home where so many years of love, rivalry, and betrayal had unfolded. The two sisters faced each other at last, not as adversaries in public, but as women bound by blood and shared history. The tension between them was thick, almost tangible, yet there was no shouting, no drama, only the weight of truth pressing down on them both. The younger sister looked at her elder sibling with eyes that had seen both love and betrayal. Memories flashed in her mind, the moments of laughter, the small comforts shared, the whispers of sabotage hidden beneath smiles. Her heart ached not only for herself but for the sister who had lost her way in envy. She felt the full spectrum of emotions: anger, sorrow, disbelief, and, slowly, a cautious tenderness. The elder sister, for her part, could no longer hide. Pride and pretense had fallen away, leaving only guilt and remorse. She saw the strength her younger sister now carried, the dignity that had survived every hardship, and the weight of her own choices pressed upon her like a stone she could never lift. She wanted to speak, to explain, to justify, but words seemed inadequate. The truth itself spoke more clearly than any explanation ever could. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then the younger sister spoke, not with venom, not with judgment, but with quiet authority. She did not offer excuses, nor did she deny the pain she had suffered. Instead, she offered something stronger: forgiveness. It was not easy. It did not erase the years of betrayal, nor did it heal every scar. But it released the grip of bitterness from her own heart. She understood that holding on to anger would not restore what had been lost. It would only extend her suffering. By choosing forgiveness, she reclaimed her peace, her dignity, and the power to move forward without being tethered to the past. The elder sister, hearing the words, felt the full measure of what she had done. She realized that her choices had irrevocably changed her life, and that forgiveness did not absolve her of consequence. It simply freed the person who offered it from being bound by hatred. She would carry the weight of her envy and the knowledge of the harm she had caused for the rest of her life. Redemption, she understood, was not guaranteed, and some wounds could never fully be mended. Yet in this moment, a fragile bridge formed. It was not reconciliation in the full sense, for trust had been broken and scars remained. But it was the acknowledgement of truth, the recognition of pain, and the willingness to face the consequences together, without escalating the damage further. The younger sister turned away, not out of cruelty, but to protect the space she had fought so hard to reclaim. The elder sister remained, contemplating what had been lost and what could never be regained. The air between them was heavy with reflection, remorse, and the quiet strength of lessons learned too late. Forgiveness, the younger sister realized, was not weakness. It was a strength far greater than revenge. It allowed her to rise above the destruction, to honor her own integrity, and to close the chapter of betrayal without letting it define her future. And the elder sister, left to live with the weight of her choices, understood that life's reckoning had come, not through punishment, but through the subtle, inevitable consequences of a heart consumed by envy. Years passed, and time, patient and unyielding, reshaped the lives of both sisters. The younger sister, once crushed under the weight of betrayal and loss, now carried herself with quiet confidence. Her scars were not erased, but they had been transformed into wisdom, guiding her steps with careful clarity. She understood that life's trials do not break a person unless they allow them to. Endurance and integrity had carried her through the darkest days. She had rebuilt her life slowly, deliberately, finding peace in small victories. Friends returned, not as people bound by obligation but as those who had witnessed her resilience and respected her strength. Her reputation, once shaken, was restored not by gossip or luck, but by the undeniable truth of her character. She had learned that patience, humility, and steadfastness leave a mark deeper and more lasting than envy or deceit ever can. The elder sister, meanwhile, remained haunted by the consequences of her choices. The community's trust, once carefully cultivated and manipulated, had eroded. Opportunities she had once taken for granted no longer came easily. Relationships strained, her pride wounded, and the loneliness that envy had sown became a daily companion. She lived with the weight of her remorse and the knowledge that some actions cannot be undone. Every success she sought felt hollow, every praise fleeting. The victories she had once cherished were now reminders of what she had sacrificed in pursuit of what was never truly hers. And yet, the story of these two sisters was not a tale of hatred or revenge, but of balance and moral truth. Life, patient and just, had not forgotten. The younger sister had endured, learned, and risen, while the elder sister faced the natural consequences of a heart consumed by jealousy. Fate, in its quiet wisdom, had remembered every choice, every slight, every subtle act of malice. In the village, people still spoke of the sisters, not to gossip but as a cautionary tale. They spoke of the dangers of envy, the power of patience, and the endurance of those who act with integrity. Children were reminded that kindness does not go unnoticed, and adults learned that justice often unfolds in ways invisible at first, but unstoppable in time. The younger sister, standing by the same riverbank where she had once wept in despair, reflected on the journey she had traveled. She thought of every challenge, every moment of heartbreak, every betrayal she had survived. And she understood the truth of life. Jealousy destroys, patience endures, and fate never forgets. The elder sister, walking alone through her quiet days, carried the memory of what had been lost. Not merely the life she might have had, but the bond of trust she had destroyed. She had faced her reckoning, not through punishment by others, but through the natural course of consequence that never fails to catch up with those who let envy rule their hearts. And in the end, both sisters lived under the same sky, shaped differently by the choices they had made. One bore scars turned to wisdom, the other carried the weight of regret. Life moved on, steady and impartial, reminding all who witnessed it that destiny may be delayed, but it is never denied. Fate had acted, not in fury, not in vengeance, but in balance. And the story of the two sisters, one light and one shadow, remained a timeless testament. The heart that harms will eventually face what it has sown, and the heart that endures will always rise again.